Last time on D&D, featuring Adrian Silverstrength, the human paladin, Apostrophe, the Goliath cleric, Dickpoop, the elven wizard, Morsus Firebeard, the hill dwarf cleric, and Rex James, the bronze dragonborn bard. So before I go into this, I just want to mention that the notes early on, when I was doing these, they were pretty skim, kind of very cliff notes of the game. And that was essentially to let me remember what happened and what storylines I was trying to weave in and out and stuff like that. And if the players read it, great also, but it was essentially pretty much for me. It was essentially like my work notes, if you will. So with that said, let's go into last time on D&D for the Adventurers Session 2. Inside the temple, the party ventured to the right, following kobold tracks that they had just discovered. This led to a room that had collapsed and had a pit with a board to cross over. Suspicious, the party took several minutes trying to figure out if it was trapped. Eventually, Dick summoned an unseen servant who fumbled while trying to cross the platform, and it collapsed. Morsus was able to use a 50-foot rope to lasso it around and pull the board back up. They eventually laid the board back across and decided that they would cross the platform. From there, they moved forward and found a door. Peeking inside ever so slowly, they were able to see what appeared to be an old man reading over some ancient tomes. In an attempt to surprise the old man reading these tomes, the party unfortunately made too much noise and they alerted the old man behind the desk. Realizing they had lost the element of surprise, Rex quickly imitated a servant, which he managed to do with a very successful persuasion. The party then rushed inside the door and attacked the old man, who then stood up and pulled his hood back, and it became very clear it wasn't just an old man. He was clearly undead. After a very long fight, the party manages to finally defeat the undead creature, and they take a rest inside of his room. They wait, with great tension, waiting for something else to be drawn to the sounds of combat that had just happened. Surprisingly, it never comes. After a long rest, from there they decided to go ahead and explore the other passage that led downward, and found a natural cavern. There were kobold tracks here, and also tracks of something that had webbed feet. The party moved the other way and found a room that had suffered some portions of a collapse. There was a door here which they attempted to kick down and successfully did so, and discovered it was a perched ledge over a room where several cultists seemed to be very focused, all standing around some kind of gem that was in the center. These were the cultists that the kobolds had mentioned. Light from above, where there was a hole in the ceiling, beams in 5 beams of light that are then directed into a hearthstone that the cultists are all standing around and chanting. The party goes back across the pit and finds a room full of kobolds. Rex takes a moment to speak to them using his draconic appearance. Kobolds agree to help the party, and Rex is able to lead these 30 kobolds in an attack against the cultists. As it turns out, the kobolds were native to this island, and these cultists recently appeared in hopes of summoning this demon. After a moment, they notice that the souls of the cultists are being pulled into the hearthstone. They begin attacking the hearthstone while the cultists continue to chant, their souls leaving their bodies. But it is finally Apostrophe who comes in and smashes it. And then the island begins to rumble. And quickly they notice that things begin to collapse and cave in. The cultists simply fall, their souls trapped inside this damaged hearthstone, and then the sound of rushing water. The party immediately begins to realize the island is actually beginning to sink. Water comes rushing in, and the party decide that they will stay in this room because there is a hole at the top of the ceiling. They begin treading water. Those in heavy armor are forced to remove their armor or drown because the water current is so violent that it is almost impossible to maintain above the water wearing heavy armor. When the island sinks and the party comes out through the holes at the top of the island, they're able to find several pieces of boards from the shipwreck that they had washed ashore on to basically cling onto. And for 3 days they float on the ocean, exhausted and drained, until finally a boat rescues them. A ship that is also headed to the Ivory Coast, where they were originally headed. And that is where we ended the second session. Very short notes, but each game was typically about 3 hours long. We typically played from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. So you can see this is just kind of a rushed version, Cliff Note version of the actual thing. It's not a play-by-play. I believe in session 17 is where we finally started recording our sessions. And what's funny is listening to that, back then I was basically just using one account, so I was having to mix the two audio. So there was one program recording the party's audio and one program recording my audio, and I'd have to time and mix it. Eventually I got smart and just loaded up a second computer with Discord that joined the channel and listened to all of it. So it listened to me and the party recording. But I was not smart enough to think of that until quite a bit later. So the audio in the first couple where I'm mixing the audio like this, it is kind of rough, but it'll be more enjoyable rather than just me rambling and reading the notes, actually hearing the players engaging and stuff like that. So until we get then, unfortunately, you're stuck with me. So see you in session 3.